Salute, Knicks Nation. The streets are buzzing. Welcome in tonight. CT, joined by the one and only Coach Nick of B-Ball Breakdown, ready to have a conversation. Are you in?
I'm in.
What a busy week, a busy off season for us Nick fans, Coach, and we're grateful for you to join us. Always appreciate your time, and well, we know it's obviously been an up and down, quiet off season for some, but for the Knicks, they've kept everyone busy. You dropped an amazing video just like an hour ago as well on Karl Anthony Towns and his impact on this team, potential impact. We'll go through all the talking points tonight with the live chat. Welcome in, guys. Smash that like button. And if you want any specific question answered, we'll try to get to as many as we can. But of course, the super chat is the best way to get your question in if there is something you would like to ask Coach Nick or myself, of course. But, Coach, how are you feeling? Great video. I had a chance to watch it once. I'm going to watch it again after this show. Everyone, the link is in the chat right now. It's pinned. Check it out after our show tonight, of course. But we'll talk about it. Kat, how surprised were you when the trade went down?
I mean, I think utterly shocked. I hadn't really heard of anything, and it turned out they had been working on it for a while with different scenarios. But I think I was shocked. I think the timing, you don't usually get big blockbuster trades at the end of September. And so it was all, and we had already been doing a couple of shows throughout the summer lamenting the departure of Isaiah Hartenstein and how they didn't really have somebody offensively that could do what he did so well. And certainly from a coach's standpoint, really love the way he can play in the high post and pass. And so in one swoop, they were pretty much able to shore up that position. And I think the only problem is that they lost DiVincenzo, which is a big loss. That was a big part of that Villanova core that really worked well. And, but if you had a chance to shore up your center position like they could do with Cat, then yes, you have to give up DiVincenzo, and there's not even a thought to it.
Yeah, that was the biggest surprise for me, Coach. Like you said, everyone knew the interest was there, and there was reports from content creators and also media members over the years. There's been many, but it goes back to Leon, managing Carl and his New Jersey roots as well. But obviously the fit about the basketball player, the center. The Knicks had that need. We lost Isaiah Hartenstein, and I did feel like maybe this trade didn't happen if Isaiah Hartenstein is still on this team, and maybe free agency went a different way. But we're here, and Knicks fan base are excited. We're all buzzing now. It's been a huge week, and especially after media day now. Today, the deal is official, and the particulars of the deal. The Knicks also had to do a lot of maneuvering just to make this happen, which goes to show a lot of thought and planning went into it. In terms of your immediate thoughts about how it impacts the team from where they were last season as well. I know we talked a little bit about Randall's fit as well, but how impactful and how optimistic are you for Carl's fit in terms of maybe four at the five? What are your initial thoughts about his on-court fit?
Well, I dug back into the footage from 17-18. I think that was Tibs' last full year in Minnesota, because I wanted to see how he used him then to get a handle on, how that might inform him. Because Tibs is a pretty, consistent guy, and you'll see a lot of similar similarities across all of his teams. And so I saw a lot of what you'd see from Isaiah Hartenstein, a lot of high post entry stuff. Well, first of all, a lot of low post. And in fact, I have a little chart from the video that you'll see when you watch it, where I charted over the years the frequency of his post ups. And, in that year, in 17-18, his frequency, it was a number one frequency, was post ups at 23.4% of the time. And he was an elite points per possession on that. And then over the years between then and now, it goes down and lower and lower. And so I would imagine that Tibbs is going to get him back on that low post and get him more touches. Certainly, if you look at Randall had a lot of low post touches down there. 16% of his time was spent down there. So there's a lot of openings for that. So I think that was the one thing that grabbed me right away, was that A, man, he posted up a lot, and then B, that percentage had gotten to the point where he needed to post up a lot more, and as a result of he was posting up less and less. He was getting less and less effective down there. So I think with this team and the other weapons they have in the spacing, he should get some good post ups.
Yeah, that was the part I loved the most about your video, to be honest with you, because there was some great comparisons to Isaiah Hartenstein, and that's what I think Knicks fans wanted to see how we can sort of build on that and work with a different player, obviously with his stretch ability, but still not lose that scoring touch down low, because Brunson is a perimeter player, and I'm excited for their fit to see how they both play off of each other with the pick and pop. And also, you did mention in your video that Carl Towns was the number one, pick and pop player. So ultimately, you think we're going to cause a lot of headaches for opposing defenses with the versatility?
I would think, yeah, the starting five at the very least, and then it's going to be interesting to see how they play off of the bench players. But the starting five should be can compete with any team in the league, as far as I'm concerned, and it's going to radically be different because of that. Hartenstein doesn't touch the ball down low on the low block. And it'll also be different than Randall because Randall would turn post-ups and then other just random, his regular ISOs into, difficult long twos that are inefficient versus what Cat will give you generally would be shots in the lane off of good moves down low. And remember, like when you want penetration to the lane, you can do a really cool 5-dribble inside out crossover whatever move into the lane. That takes a lot of energy. Or you can get the same result by throwing it down low to a good low post position to a player like Cat. And it's a lot easier to do that. So you should see a lot of the bending of the defense that way initially on that end down to the low block. But then what also got me excited was that there was plenty of high post touches for Cat as well in his offense in 17-18 in Minnesota, which is what we saw a lot of last year. And what we saw in Hartenstein, though, was an interesting thing is on all the handoffs that he would do, along the elbows, along the free throw line, he instantly rolls to the basket every single time. There's no gravity there. He's not going to drag anybody out. He's not going out the three-point line. Everybody knows it. And so he would get in the way, or his man can get in the way of cutters and drivers off of that handoff stuff. Now, they did a wonderful job being able to find him on those lefty jump hooks he would do from 14, 13 feet. Those are hard shots, and he could make that. But the biggest difference is that Cat has plenty of experience doing all the handoffs, and then he just steps back behind the three-point line. And now his man who wants to help on the cutters, who wants to help on the drivers, is now 8, 10 feet off of him when he gets the catch. And you know that Brunson's terrific at finding those openings. And so it would not be hard to imagine lots of open threes on that high post action that they're going to run after he does the post-ups. So again, there's a lot of options here. And I think there's not going to be a learning curve at all for Cat. He'll be able to plug right in and do it from day one.
Yeah, well, yeah, hold that thought because I want to go into the Tibs factor and how he previously coached Cat. But just with this current team, Coach, how different do you think it would be to Minnesota with OG Anunoby and the shooting, the floor spacing in the corner with Bridges as well? Hart is projected to be the fifth starter, and I did watch your stream with our combo the other night as well. And you guys were sort of talking about who could fit into the lineups as well. That's a conversation that Knicks fans are still having, but it does look like Hart will be in that starting unit. But there's pressure. So the Knicks could go big, they could go small. I think there's going to be a better player movement with players off the ball. But yeah, how do you feel like with the wings specifically, they'll help Brunson and Carl?
I wish I got a little bit more into the post-up stuff with him skip passing because he doesn't skip the pass a lot when Karl Anthony Towns has the ball down low. There are other players that are better at that, but there was some evidence of that where he could do these interesting like highlight passes, what I call them, like hook passes to the corners. And a guy like OG Anunoby should feast on that. So you should see openings for Anunoby in the corners. And also what I showed was because of the gravity that Karl Anthony Towns possesses, teams freak out when he gets a catch on the wing. Like they're going to run to him. They need to get there. And I saw he got so many assists for the easiest pass, the one more pass to the corners. And he'd have his teammates like McDaniels just standing all by themselves, wide open, shooting threes and getting assists that way. So you can picture any number of, if it's going to be Bridges, if it's going to be Anunoby, it's going to be Hart. All those guys should benefit greatly in a way that they did not benefit from Hartenstein. What they benefited on that end was the cutting and the beautiful backdoor stuff, which, by the way, I also showed in the video, Karl Anthony Towns can do. And I was a little bit surprised when I dug into the assists that he did have as many as he did. He is comfortable throwing backdoor passes. A little bit different. He might hold it a little bit longer and find them later on in the cut. But still, he has that vision and he's willing to throw those passes. So all of a sudden you're opening up because of the threat of the three. He'll throw those backdoor passes from the 3-point line instead of where Hartenstein would be 15 feet from the basket. And that should make it easier. It should be open farther for all that stuff. So they should see so much space. And then, by the way, Brunson, who I believe it was just last year. Remember, I think I did the video where he had no space, right? They were throwing out lineups with like a center and Randall, and then maybe a Hart who wasn't shooting well, I think. And he had, there was nobody to help space the floor for him. And now, OG is a shooter they're going to have to honor. So is Bridges, independent of his form. And so is Cat. And so you have, and then, Hart at times has been able to knock down shots. And I have to imagine he'll probably shoot as well as he ever will have in his career this year with all the other guys providing extra energy and extra space for him. So I would expect this offense to go from 7th ranked where they were last year higher. It should be top 5 easy.
Great. Yeah, that was my next question to you, actually. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Hart because he actually had some good numbers in the corner, coach, in terms of just being that guy, with maybe Hart got the offensive rebound and the kick out. Hart was open and got a lot of those. Precious actually got a few of those. So Precious Achua has been working on his 3-point shot. Maybe we could get that to be serviceable as well. But yeah, I like the ability to play big and small, although we'll talk about the depth tonight as well. But with the Heart role, dribble handoffs, with Randall as well. Do you see that a bit with Carl?
Yes. So yeah, for sure you'll see plenty of high post touches for Karl Anthony Towns, and out of that, back to the basket, he could dribble handoff. He could actually just step back. Even the screens away, you'll see him screen away and then pop out versus Hartenstein, who would screen away and then slip to the basket, right? And again, that does serve to be a cut that could put pressure on the defense. But in my mind, Karl Anthony Towns' threat of popping out provides more pressure on the defense. It stretches them out that much farther. So you should see plenty of those moments. Now, Karl Anthony Towns also can score off the dribble. Like, I think, I probably don't know if I focus on that as much because I want to study on the shooting. But he also goes to the basket, and then you're going to see those moments where he'll fake the handoff and he keeps going. And you'll see a lot of that. I mean, it's really interesting how the evolution of the offense has come because Tibs was a triangle offense coach originally before when he was with in Chicago even. And then what he's doing now is sort of a hybrid version of the triangle again. Anytime you see an entry to the elbow and then some sort of dribble into a handoff, that's right out of the triangle offense. It's right out of D'Antoni's 21 stuff. And so it's really great to be able to see the mixing of the old school patterns that go back to the 20s. They were doing that back then. They really understood on a rectangular court with a half court how you're supposed to move with the ball. And then you combine that with the dribbling and the shooting that they have now. And it really shows you just how dangerous, how unstoppable it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of staggering too, I feel like it's a great idea to stagger. Maybe Carl is a first sub. You can bring Precious on. Brunson still on the floor. Do you think it's a good idea to have either Karl Anthony or Brunson on the court at all times so that there's that one go-to scorer to help?
Yeah, I mean they'll probably, yeah, because there's no one else who can play that role. That said, Bridges could do that role as a second or third guy, right? And we saw that in Brooklyn a little bit, where he could be potentially against the bench players, the number one option at times. So I bet you're going to see a round robin of like those 3 guys, keeping them on the court because no one else really can do it. And that, we'll probably get to playing time in a minute as well, because that's going to be really informative of how he's going to manage this and get through the whole season. But they have a lot of, they have choices, but the problem here is I would suspect, and I said in the video, defensively is obviously a big focus of Tibs. And it's going to be a problem on that end with Cat playing the center position. There's on the margins there's evidence that he can do some things. He could force a few turnovers, but in the long run, in the aggregate, it just seems like there's too much evidence of him with really kind of troubling footwork defensively, which when you watch that, for me it's frustrating because I believe that could be fixed. I believe his foot plants could be retrained to get better and be more explosive, but at this point in his career I don't know if he's going to get that training anymore, but it could help. Meanwhile, he does get awkward on the foot plants. He gets blown by on a lot of that stuff. So I would anticipate when Mitchell Robinson is healthy, they're going to have to play him. And that means Josh Hart goes to the bench. And then, which is good because then Josh Hart gives the bench a little bit more of a bolstering, and then everyone else gets, a boost from that. So, they will have options when Robinson comes back, unless I think I saw a tweet or two talking about maybe working on a trade. They're going to trade him. Did you see anything like that?
Yep, absolutely. So, I mean, they're taking calls. Nothing is imminent, but they're taking calls in terms of if something makes sense. And I think it's along the lines of financially, coach. Mitch's 12 million, 14 million. The Knicks could maybe get two players out of that. Maybe there's those durability
Hmm.
questions over
Right.
a Mitchell Robinson. But yeah, when healthy, I agree with you. I think it's a great fit because we've seen it in Minnesota. It can work with Rudy Gobert. It could work with a Mitch. And I'm not sold on Carl being a full-time five, as well as I don't think he's a full-time four for the Knicks to get great offense. So I think you got to, mix and match. I would like to see maybe a 50-50 split because I think of all people to win in the playoffs postseason, you need versatility. You need to be able to play up, play down, and throw the opponent off. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I get worried because like Rudy is a good example of. I think there's just a ceiling for any team that he plays on if they had the role that he played last year, because you need to have enough offensive competency from all five positions, and Rudy just doesn't have enough of that deep in the playoffs. They got to the conference finals. I think they've probably done that before with Rudy's teams at some point, but I just feel like there's too many instances where he'll fumble the pass, he'll fumble the shot, he throws the ball away, and they'll feed him, and they were giving it to him in a way that I'm like, if you could play him more like Robinson's role, who is simply going to be the garbage man, eating whatever he can get as scraps from anyone dishing and cutting and offensive rebounds, great. But if you're going to like force feed him the ball down low and or on the high post too, and expect him to make plays, but that's where you're going to get in trouble. So with a player like Rudy, so the question here is like Mitchell Robinson, is he a better offensive player than Rudy? I'd say he's got better hands. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
he's
so
definitely safer hands. He's put the ball on the floor a few times. I would say he's less clumsy than Rudy. He goes up with more force in terms of that, and I think he's better on probably the lob in terms of he can get up a bit higher.
oh, so right, and so and defensively, then he can give you 85% of Rudy, 90% of Rudy, right, something like that. And at 12 million, by the way, I think they're paying Rudy whatever 30 something million, right? So when you're talking about finding two players for that 12 million instead of Mitchell Robinson, first of all, there's not a market for him because he's so injury prone. I just don't think anyone would want him, unfortunately, even though he plays well when he does play. But if you could do that, okay, yeah, could you find like a defensive center that's going to grab some rebounds, maybe block a shot or two?
Nick Richards,
Million.
someone like that. Yeah, he's on 5 million. There was
Who
some
is that?
discussions with that, but yeah, and it seems like because he's a Louisiana native, New Orleans are a team that seem to be very interested. They need a center
Who are you
coach.
talking about?
Yeah, um, New Orleans
Trading who to New
for
York?
Mitch. Yeah.
Who?
Well, they haven't mentioned players specifically. I
Oh,
mean, Knicks fans want Trey Murphy the third, but
yeah.
we don't know if New Orleans would even entertain that. But they do need a center. But I think if Mitch gets healthy, it's a lot easier sell. To talk trades, and
Right.
he might be healthy by December. They've given a very vague timeline, December, January. But if all things go well, and he can get back on the court by the turn of the new year, then you could have some very interesting discussions had. And then by then we'll know how Carl Anthony is looking in different positions. And I think it'll give you a really good sample, won't it?
Absolutely, and and again, they have enough talent where they could probably get by that way until January until Mitch Robinson gets back. The Trey Murphy stuff is interesting only because they've already got that player in OG and in Bridges, or you know what I mean. Like he's kind of like in that same mold. I don't know if he's. And by the way, I love him. He's been on the show. He's going to be a great player. But I don't know if that's the exact fit. Because also the Knicks would want a big guy, right? They want a center back. So I don't know who that would be from the Pelicans necessarily.
The coach, yeah, the Knicks actually got a center back in this Towns deal, but he's in Europe at the moment. He's a project. James Nnaji, the 31st pick from Charlotte in the 23 draft. So but he might be a stash for another year or two. But he's a cheap body that Tibbs might be able to play some magic with on getting him ready in a year or two.
Well, but you also have on this picture is Jericho Sims. And I've seen there was a moment, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, where he played really, really well. Like I think I had seen a game against Jokic where he did okay defensively and he could put the ball in the bucket a little bit. So maybe that's the guy. Maybe he could be the guy who can fill. He's a big body, right? And he can. I think he's got a little ability. So I would love to see Tibbs have some trust in him and give him a shot. And he should, right? Certainly without Robinson, he should get 16, 17, 18 minutes consistently for a week or for a month or two. So I would love to see that. That could be the thing. That might be what they need. And then the beauty of it is okay, Robinson comes back and he's doing his thing. Well, you had Jericho Sims who's gotten some confidence. He's gotten some rhythm going there. And you got him, just in case Robinson gets hurt again or goes down, which seems to happen often. So there's a lot of that's the guy that they're going to probably, have to give some run to and hope that he continues to develop.
Yeah, big off season for Jericho, like you said, and he's in a contract year. This is his fifth year, I think, coming into the Knicks. But in terms of his game, he's solid setting screens. He can switch out on the perimeter, and that's something that we found out from media day that Tibbs will be looking to switch a lot more on defense. Hart did reference the toll it takes fighting over those screens, and the Knicks were elite at fighting over screens. But what do you think about a more switching defense? You got Precious,
Right
you
on
got Sims. Can Carl Towns switch his feet well?
So right, because what you saw, and I was shocked. It's funny when I watch all the games. I broke the games down during the playoffs, with my fine-toothed comb. But what I guess I didn't necessarily realize was they were having Towns guard the pick and roll like 90s style hedging a lot. And he would have to then sprint to recover back to his man, and they were exploiting this because they knew he was going to hedge. They just hit his man who was popping out. And again, his footwork would get sloppy and he'd get blown by. I mean, it wasn't close. There was probably 12 clips I had more I could have shared in the video. And at some point when you're looking at that as a coaching staff, you got to say to yourself, this isn't working. This is not how we should have him play. And Tibbs is much more of a drop guy, right? So he would drop down and not have to hedge high and then have to sprint all the way back. And if he does sprint, it's a little bit more in one direction versus a lateral direction, then stopping, now having to slide and all that stuff. So that would have already been better for Karl Anthony Towns as it is if they were just going to have him drop. But if they're going to have switching more and let him switch, because I think that would probably be the best thing. Let him switch because he could probably stay in front when he's already in position, and his guys in front of him, he can focus on that. That's better than what we've seen from when he's got to recover. So, I don't know if the switching thing was quickly grabbed because of the trade and now they realize that they do that, or they already had planned that. But either way, that should really help Towns a lot more. And I'll be surprised if it happens because Tibbs doesn't normally switch often, in my mind's eye, thinking about it. And so a welcome evolution. You have to in this day and age, especially because you have OG, you have Bridges, and you have Hart. Those guys can cover. They can cover for you if you get beat, and they're good at that, and it's very smart on defense. So let Anthony, get the guy, keep him in front. He's got long arms. You can give a 6-foot cushion to a guard, and then get a hand up. I think that would be enough for Tibbs.
Yeah, and I personally just can't say enough about how I feel like OG is going to be able to help and Bridges to an extent because OG is an amazing, low help defender in terms of playing next to Carl Anthony. I think in terms of his ability to protect the rim a little bit as well because he's got great hops. Again, if you want to play bigger, you could shuffle OG to the 3 and you could shove Precious in there. You got more rim protection for Carl. So, you can have him out on the perimeter and not be worried about being blown by as much. I think, really excited to see what Tibbs does. I think Tibbs has a chance to really have his best coaching year in terms of evolution and just throwing some different things out there. But when you were doing your video, Coach, and you were breaking the tape down and the fit with Towns, what surprised you, the most? Like, was there anything else that really stood out that you didn't know or thought, okay, this is something?
It was the passing. I thought, it's funny because Towns has this thing too where he had moments where he tries to get extra fancy and he'll do like a no look pass, but he passes it and then he looks away, which is funny because that's not a no look, but it kind of looks that way if you don't know what you're looking at. But that was the thing I think that was probably the most surprising was his passing could resemble what we got from Hartenstein. So that's really going to be great. other than that, I mean, he's been around for so long. We know his game. We know what he's going to do. He played for Tibbs already, so there wasn't a lot of like surprise that way. I think the other thing maybe surprised me was just how little he'd been posting up and how that's been going down and down and down, just straight up low post ups. Because Rudy isn't going to take them away from him, in Minnesota. But I guess they just decided to go away from that more and then, go more toward Anthony Edwards. And so that sort of, eliminated the difference in the post ups from then. So that might have been the only other thing. 'Cause, again, I've been documenting the defensive stuff for him for a long time as well. Just parenthetically with Precious, I would just caution, I think, the Knicks fans to not expect too much. I know he had a couple moments where last year where you felt like, okay, God, he can really have some ability, but then he would balance that with astoundingly strange plays that you have to just scratch your head and like, what are you doing? And so Tibbs, you have to hope that whatever effect Tibbs has, who's a terrific coach, can help him develop more and eliminate those plays. He really, on a good team, if you're the seventh man, eighth man, you cannot make the plays. I'm talking about just weird, like passing the ball to the other team, weird travels, weird turnovers that just can't happen in the middle of the court. I mean, literally cannot happen on a good team. You can't have players like that. So you have to hope that he's developed and learned and raised his IQ more, so that won't happen again. And so you get the best of the version of him, which would be,
Yeah.
rebounding, a block shot or two, hit a three or two. Just give you good minutes where you're not hurting the team. So if they can get that, then okay, then they're on their way again. If they can continue to develop that, but he's going to have to get better. Even if he's improved on day one when we see him in the preseason, I still think he's going to have to get better than that over the course of till before the playoffs.
Yeah, the thing with Precious Achura, he's a confidence player, but his minutes went up drastically. He went from out of the rotation in Toronto, then he was playing like 30 minutes a night for the Knicks because the bodies went down. So I feel like, those that rust and those mistakes were coming out. But if he's getting a consistent role, I feel like he could maybe, fine tune his game more and rein those in a little bit. But yeah, that's the thing about Tibbs. He does have a quick hook, and players can lose a little bit of confidence
Yeah.
because he just hates those frustrating, turnovers and things like that. And it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
I mean, would it kill him to smile a little bit? I mean, they're having more and more positive plays and more winning, and it's like the guy, man, to get him to smile on the sideline is like, and I think it would help. I honestly think that body language, especially with this team, because listen, Brunson's a real character, right? They like to laugh. And I think part of that is because they play better when they're in that positive frame of mind. And I think that he might discover something on that end too if he could, and they're going to make a lot of really good plays, so there should be less of the scowl just because they are playing better, I would hope. But he under the guise of like standards, and I got to keep them motivated and all that stuff. I don't think you have to worry about this particular group in my mind. Seems pretty motivated, and seems like they know how to play hard and they're going to play hard. And you don't need to sort of be the taskmaster on that end as much as you could maybe for Precious and for Deuce, who also I think went through a doghouse too. Am I mistaken? I think he have a little period
Yeah,
there.
yeah, definitely. And in terms of, you're right, the vibes are so much better in terms of, the last few years. But obviously, Dante leaving and Isaiah were big voices in the locker room. But look,
Mhm.
Karl Anthony Towns is a very jovial, fun guy, and I think he'll definitely, gel with these guys. And I think in terms of, the goal, everyone knows what the expectation is. But here's what I would say to you and all the Knicks fans. I think this is a longer term thing than some people are thinking about. These guys on screen, they're all contractually, and Bridges is going to, assumingly get extended, is the talk. They're all locked up under contract for 4 years, coach. This is a 4 year legit like title run that
Mhm.
not many teams can say, security wise, it's all confirmed. They've just gel and they've just got to put it all together. But if they don't get it done this season, that's not going to discourage me, and I know it won't discourage them because I feel like they're looking at this as a long term thing, where the window is wide open. They're all under 30,
Oh yeah.
coach.
Now Cat, I think is under contract for 2 years. I think right this year and next. Am I wrong?
Cat's no Cat signed a 4 year deal, so he's got a brand new fresh deal,
Oh, okay.
4 years.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's a really great point, but we also need to talk a little bit about the addition by subtraction because you're talking about Cat, who. So how long I've been coming on your show for like what 3 seasons now,
Yeah,
at
about
least.
that.
And I
Yep.
know every time I've been on your show, I've talked about how that they should trade Randall. And I
Mm.
know I've been talking about it for even longer than that. So it's probably been 4 years where I thought that they needed to trade Randall every of those years. He just didn't fit. And part of the reason why is because there seems to be a cloud that follows him wherever he goes. He just seems to be upset a lot of the time in a mad way. And you could see last year the Nova guys decided, you know what, he plays better when he's happier. We're going to do everything we can to keep him happy. We're going to screw around. We're going to pour water on him when he does the post game interviews. We're going to have fun, right? And that is a really an incredible insight that they had into what they needed to do and were willing to do. It had to be a little exhausting, to have to deal with that a lot, and you never quite know who Randall is, which Randall's coming in the door. Now, Cat is a little similar. He's got some baggage emotionally as well. But his emotional baggage tends to be a little bit more like maybe down and sad versus Randall, who could be angry. And so I feel like that, and then with the same kind of mindset, and they're very in tune with their teammates, they can probably have an easier time keeping Cat positive, right, than they might have with Randall. And so that's going to be huge as well because again, Tibbs might not necessarily be that guy who's going to help keep that emotional roller coaster stable. He's intense too, and then it can feed into that. So I do think that this is going to be a great fit in that respect because I think it was probably a little bit exhausting with Randall being that way, aside from the style of play, which could, turn into ISOs and sort of stopping the play they wanted to see. Now, you could yell at me and say I'm completely wrong, but when Randall goes down and they go, what was the run? 24-2? What do they have?
Yep.
Last year? Something like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's
January.
pretty good proof. That's not a little 5 game sample. That's not a 10 game sample. That's like, getting closer to like half the season where you can see like this is really moving. The ball is moving better. The vibes are better. And that's what's important at this level.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of factors, and I think that was one. I think the contract though was the number one thing. They were looking at it like, look, what is it going to take to extend Randall? He doesn't want to maybe extend for a cheaper deal or a lower deal, and we really needed a center, so it all kind of added up. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of the fit on the basketball court. Randall was more of a throwback player, and I definitely appreciated what he contributed to us and over the years, and he definitely helped raise the franchise in terms of before Brunson came, and he took on a big expectation. And that's the thing about playing in New York, coach. It's like, as you know, the expectation is like no other market. The pressure you face, the scrutiny, the abuse on social media. His wife, and there was a point where it was really rough, and I think that did it cracked Julius a little. Reporters were reporting on trade rumors, and it just he overcame that. And definitely when Brunson came, he became a lot more calmer. I think, which did help a lot too. But I think he's gonna help Minnesota. I think they did really well. I think this is a really win-win trade
Well,
overall, coach.
I have a question for you. If they made the trade 2 years ago, would they have had to have included DiVincenzo? Let's just pretend like the salaries were matching. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that his trade value would have been a lot higher 2 years ago than it was now?
Yeah, I think there's a chance because he would have more years on his contract,
Oh,
and I think
I'm just thinking about play. I got to go like, put my head back from 2 years ago. I want at some point in the last like 2, 3, 4 years, Randall's value was higher, right? I think in terms of as a player, like and they waited long enough where okay, they were able to pull off a deal, but yeah, they had to give up DiVincenzo instead, and then the other pieces. So that's interesting to me, where it was like they just kind of done it earlier. They probably could have gotten somebody even better, 1-to-1 in there. But you know what? I can't fault them. That was a pretty good trade. I think both teams are going to benefit. They're going to love DiVincenzo. Now the question here is how does he fit in? Because they have Anthony Edwards playing the two guard. And can he play like three? DiVincenzo could be a small three, I suppose. I mean, he's so good he can plug him in wherever you need him to, and they're going to love him. That's going to work. But it does make it interesting to me how he'll fit in. Will he play some combo point guard alongside Anthony Edwards? Maybe, probably. Um, but the Randall fit is going to be more interesting because you have Randall and Rudy. Um, I don't know how that works. Cat and Rudy, I could see Cat can stretch the floor. Is Randall going to stretch the floor, or was that an anomaly? His 1 3-point shooting season.
there's parts of the floor where he's solid, 36%. It's just got to be lower volume. I think there was that year where he shot amazing, the most improved player year, where the volume was just through the roof. There was no Brunson. He had all the shots he wanted, and it just gelled. He was just in a crazy rhythm. But yeah, when Brunson came, obviously he wasn't getting as many 3-point attempts. But the shooting is, the skill set is legit. I just don't think you're going to see Randall shoot 6 to 8 attempts. I think 3 or 4. I think is solid. If he's hitting it, then the defense is going to close out, and then you run with it with that one. Um,
I mean, I
yeah,
know we won't get the same respect as Cat did at least the first couple months of the season, and that might be good for him because then he'll get probably some more open threes until they start worrying about it and adjust and close out more. So we'll see. I mean, we'll find out probably within the month, how well that's all working. Because it's interesting on the Minnesota standpoint because they're building a team that was threatening to get the finals and maybe win a title, and they completely changed the makeup of the team overnight, and that's going to be interesting. I mean, even though the fact that like he's lefty, right? Like that changes some things too. I mean, and then for the Knicks as well because they had Hartenstein, Brunson, and Randall, right? Like, remember we talked about that last year too. Like, how is that going to work when you have three lefty dominant players? And so that'll just be different. It'll be a little bit weird. I think Tibbs is going to have to remember, have to maybe adjust some of the sets to get Karl Anthony Towns coming from the other side so he can go in with a strong right hand. But that's easy enough to figure out. And at least with Brunson, we discovered like, yeah, he can go to his right pretty damn well.
yeah, definitely. And as we wrap up with Coach Nick, I'll continue streaming. Coach has been generous with his time, but I just wanted to make this point lastly, Coach, and you can throw anything else you want out there. But I feel like the Knicks will probably miss Hartenstein the most out of Dante and Randall. With Dante, my reasoning is I think Deuce McBride, you give him more shot attempts, and you've also brought in Bridges, who effectively took Dante's role. So yes, Dante was amazing, but if you're replacing him with similar to better talent, you're not going to miss that as much. Randall, obviously, Cat is going to replace his production, but Isaiah Hartenstein, that's the production where I don't think the Knicks have a like for like replacement. But if we play a different way, the Cat floor spacing, the guy's just going to have to team rebound better. So I feel like the Isaiah one is going to probably, I'll look back on the season and maybe we miss him the most, but I might be wrong.
I mean, just ask Thunder fans after the season, and then their answer is probably going to be your answer as well because they're going to win a title with him there or something. They're going to go on a run without question. That his addition to that team, plus they added Caruso, is immeasurable. Like what they're doing, really great moves. Now the thing about DiVincenzo though is there's an X factor there. There's an IQ factor there. There is a chemistry thing that was happening that you might not easily replace with extra talent. So you have to be worried about that and see if they, and by the way, Tibbs seems to be able to gel and get guys to play together. So that's not shouldn't be the issue. We've seen it in the past. So I don't think it will be one. But yeah, DiVincenzo, we don't overlook that just yet. He was big and he would hit big shots and he would make really important plays on both sides of the ball. And Deuce could probably do that. I don't know if he's quite ready to be that in the conference finals, making serious plays. But that's what's going to happen because you're going to see double teams probably still on Brunson, and you're going to probably see some extra weight towards Cat. So that means that Deuce is going to have some space to make some decisions, and so will OG, and so will Bridges, and we'll see. I mean, the real question on the other side then is who is going to break out beyond Brunson and Cat? Playing off of them. And that's a question because is it going to probably be Bridges? I mean, probably, but you never know. There might be this notion that, maybe McBride could start scoring 18 a game off the bench and like as a six man of the year candidate.
Well, it's funny you said that. His points average as a starter was 18 when he filled in last season. So that's what I mean about replacing Dante. You give that volume over to Deuce, and he's shown that he can do it. Yeah, it's just like you're just taking the shot attempts from someone and just giving it to another player. That's by the way under contract for 3 more seasons at 4 million under
Wow.
an extremely valuable deal. Deuce McBride, one of the best, I think, top 10 contracts in the league. Only 24, 25. I think the ceiling is there. But real quick, Coach, the ceiling of this team. I know you put in the video. You think Eastern Conference Finals that they can get to
Yeah.
as well. Is that what you feel like will happen? Do you feel like what is the ceiling for this team?
Well, the Celtics are reloaded and back for another run, and winning a third title in a row it tends to be really hard. Back to back certainly is hard, but like a little bit more doable. So that's on the table for them. And do they match up? They probably. Oh, and by the way, the Knicks are built to beat the Celtics, right? They're matched up with OG and Bridges to face off against Tatum and Brown. So that works out really well for them. So there's a lot of they match up well. Philly added Paul George, and I think that's going to be a real big question mark in a way that everyone probably is a little bit nervous. That this could be an explosive team put together by Dale Morey that has Embiid and their point guard
Maxi.
Maxi, thank you, Maxi. That's a really powerful offensive team. Embiid, when he's healthy, can play defense really well. And so you got to be careful about them. And then Paul George, when he's healthy, is a really good defender as well. So they have a team that could really compete. The Bucks are being slept on. Maybe they may or not. I know that Giannis might have a resurgence, knowing what's going on in the background with him and training. There's some new stuff going on there, which could yield a higher efficiency season from him and a more varied and more varied attack, which would just make the team better too. So that's going to be tough to figure out, but I figure they can beat one of those teams in the playoffs in a series, like in the second round, right? That's how I was looking at. They can probably have like some, maybe the bottom of the East to play in the first round, get through there, and then they'll have to play one of those teams in the second round. I think they can get through that, and then it's going to be an interesting thing. Did they get enough chemistry? Did they get enough confidence? Have they stayed healthy enough to then get to the finals? It's going to be a big deal. And Tibbs, overplays players, and we didn't really talk about that yet, but like. Certainly, when you're looking at the minutes, even a Cat when he's playing under Tibbs in Minnesota was playing 5 minutes a game longer than he was when he got to to Minnesota or after Tibbs left. So and there's a reason like that's why, and he's been relatively healthy those years. So that's what you got to be worried about. I mean, the Pacers, their clear goal was to push the pace so fast, knowing that they were going to play so many minutes in the opening games that they were going to wear them out. And, OG was certainly, in my mind, the hamstring was related to that. The Brunson hand injury was a freak one. That's too bad. That was really tragic. But at that point, the series might have been decided anyway. But you could just sort of see like they got run down. And Tibbs has to do everything he possibly can to avoid that happening through the rest of the regular season this year.
Yeah, that's what I did briefly mention before. I think the key is to stagger the starting five. Like he can't just run that starting five so much. If Precious can work at the four a little bit, Towns at the five, and rotate those guys, play guys that play well off of each other. I think you got to sprinkle Deuce McBride in there a lot with the starters,
Yeah.
vice versa. In fact, some fans want Deuce to start at the two just so Hart can come off the bench, and there's a lot of different combos, which
Okay.
I think is it's going
But
to be very
also,
interesting.
the starting five should be so good that they should be able to build pretty decent leads against the bottom 10 or 12 teams in the league, at least. And they play them probably 40 games, right? So at least for those games, Tibbs should feel comfortable playing Brunson 33 minutes or 34 tops, and all those guys about that, and because everyone else, they have a bigger lead. So that should happen on a big chunk of the games. And then, in the regular season, some of the games, whatever, like he might have to be willing to kind of, maybe lose a game or two in the regular season to continue keeping them fresh. And he plays every game like it's game 7 of the finals, right? You got to be able to hide some of the things you're going to do and like set them up for later by not running the sets that you might run later on. So there's a lot of that stuff that maybe he needs to be a little bit more focused on this year in particular, because again, while you do have a nice window, the windows close very quickly, and you don't want to ruin a whole season by just overplaying guys and they break down.
Yeah, that's why I'm more patient, and I don't know how many patient fans there are, but I know this is a learning curve early, and they've got to figure out the chemistry. And that's why I keep mentioning this is a 4-year run. I think the window's open. Fortunately, everyone's under contract now, and I think that's why Leon ultimately rolled the dice and put this all together, because it's not just a 1-year thing. I think we're suited long term. But Coach, great to chat always, and great video as well. I'll put it in the chat once again. I'll continue streaming and answer some of the chat's questions as the fan base is excited. We are buzzing for the season to start, and I look forward to talking to you later as the season goes.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. I can't wait either. I'm really excited to see New York. Finally. Again, listen, it's not even finally. They were there, but it's exciting to actually see. While it's not a free agent signing, which they've still been elusive to them, it bringing in a top talent like this, and also adjusting the roster by subtraction. Leon Rose, man, has to be in contention again for executive of the year already for this coming year.
Yeah, most definitely. Coach, talk soon.
You got it. Thanks.
Thanks. Peace. Coach Nick, a B-ball breakdown, CT with you live. We're breaking down the latest from camp, day 2 as well. The Karl Anthony Towns trade is official, but no, he didn't speak today. Obviously, it happened sort of late afternoon, but Karl Anthony Towns, sorry, will be talking tomorrow. We'll be facing the media and talking for the first time as a New York Knick. Most of you have heard already that the New York Knicks have signed TJ Warren to an Exhibit 10 deal. I'll break down what that means as well, because there is a bit of confusion over, people expecting him to maybe make the roster with Landry Shamet. But we're going to go through the cap situation as well. And I'll start a few questions as well. The chat's buzzing, so I get to as many as I possibly can. But thank you, appreciate you, Buzzer Beater, for the super chat. Why haven't we used any of our 4 cap exceptions, fam? So that's a great question, and I'm not an official capologist, but from my understanding is that even if you use an exception, it still counts against the player's salary will still count against the salary cap, right? And we are literally we are right up against the apron, right? So we might not, I don't think we have room for TJ Warren, put it that way. So in terms of these exceptions, we're either saving them for the future after we've made maybe a consolidation move, and so that we can use one of those later once we've brought our salary back down, because once again our salary total number is right up against the second apron, and we will literally have to sign a rookie for our 14th roster spot, I think, just to make it all work, right? And we had Iman Shumpert on First Take as well. I didn't agree with his take, former Knicks tape, Iman Shumpert, and he spoke on the fit. He loves the fit with Cat and Brunson, right? But he feels like in the playoffs, it's not scary enough. So I think he's just trying to be controversial with that one. Um, but yeah, here's a great graphic, just put out 2 hours ago by Bobby Marks, and I think this is the best breakdown that I go for, fam, in terms of where we're at. You look at the far right, man, we are 3.6 million below the second apron with 12 contracts guaranteed. So we literally have to fill 2 spots with just 3.6 million available. Landry Shamet's 2.1 million will fit under that. But then if you do the math, there's only 1.5 million left over after signing Landry to the 13th spot. So who's going to fit under 1.5 million? A veteran minimum doesn't fit under that, unfortunately. The new NBA veteran minimum is 2.1 million. So with 1.5 million left, it's going to have to be a rookie. It's either going to have to be McCullough, Huckporty. You convert them to a two-way from a two-way to a real spot, and then you can add another two-way in their previous role. Or you could maybe do the same with the newest Nick, James Nnaji, right? We'll break down his game a bit more tonight. But welcome into James Nnaji, right? He's not in the NBA yet. The Knicks have his rights as well. So we could slide him if we think he's valuable enough to take up a real roster spot. We could move Huckporty to a real roster spot, and maybe James Nnaji takes a two-way. So we could add 2 centers that away. There is many different ways we can do it, fam, as I'll bring up our depth chart as well. And don't forget to smash that like button. Appreciate you for joining us. We got the streets buzzing right now. Coach Nick in the building gave us some great insight, and of course his video as well that was put out. Really look forward to checking that out again. It's pinned in the comment section, right? So check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, we're literally making the best of what we have, available. And in terms of our depth, guys, Mitch is a wild card, right? My X factors are Deuce McBride and Mikal Bridges. I'll talk a bit about that more again. But my wild card is definitely Mitch because he changes a lot. If he's healthy, then you have an alternative starting player that you can play more, right? And then you could put Hart back to the bench. Or if Carl Towns, his defense is suffering at the five, you've got that assurance, and you could throw Carl back to the four. With Mitch's absence, it literally stretches everything. Where you're relying on Precious a lot more and Jericho. So I think that's a real factor as well. That people, Leon's going to make a real tough decision with Mitchell Robinson. I'm not going to lie. Do you stay? Do you wait and be patient? Hopes that he can get back earlier than expected, and be a factor, or do you continue to exercise, these trade discussions and see what could be out there? Because if we look at, that salary number again, what would open the world of possibilities is if we were to move off of Mitch's salary and get our cap number way down, and then you could start playing around and start signing more veterans. You could add a 15th man to your roster. Right now we're trying to compete for a championship. 14 men doesn't make much sense to me. I would love to get that 15th guy on the roster just so you're a bit more deep. You've got that bit more, insurance down the stretch. We all know what happened last season. Bodies can go down. But right now, I like our talent. I like our talent on paper. I think somebody's going to have to step up. There's no doubt about it. Whether that's Precious, continues a little resurgence in New York City, like he did show last season. Whether it is Deuce McBride, elevates to a most improved player, legitimate candidate, or a six-man legitimate candidate. But yeah, the way I look at this bench depth, right, whether TJ Warren ends up taking a spot somehow, maybe he takes Shamet's spot, maybe they end up figuring out another move to free up more money. But as I said, I don't think Shamet and TJ Warren can both be on the roster because that's going to exceed the 3.6 million. Now, there was some talk about TJ Warren being on an unguaranteed deal. I don't know if there is a ability in the cap, in the CBA, where TJ Warren's money exceeds and gets us over the second apron. But because it's an unguaranteed deal, then we can just cut him as the season goes along, and maybe his salary is just prorated towards his tenure. That could be something. That could be a loophole. But from the reporting and what we're hearing is that Landry Shamet will be that guy, at least the 13th guy to make it. And then I think they're probably playing it, in terms of battling to see who might get that 14th spot out of Okeke, out of Huck Pority, McCullough getting converted as well. But another veteran, I think, won't fit in there. Some of you like Chuma Okeke, I see. TJ can give us some good minutes, but limited minutes, said David. Landry Shamet had a down year in Washington, guys, but I feel like it's a junk franchise. If we're keeping it real, he didn't have as much motivation. They're trying to lose. All of those factors in, man. He's back with his friend in Mikal Bridges from his Phoenix days. And he's in a big spotlight, a big club, trying to win. I think we'll get a better version of Landry Shamet this season. We'll see what ends up happening, man. But look, I like the pickups of the James Nnaji. That was definitely a nice little throw-in. I don't know if he'll be a factor this season. I doubt it. He does appear to be a bit raw, but I'm going to bring up some highlights on his game right now. It was a good move for the future because you do need cheaper salaries, right? And if he can continue to develop overseas, that is really, really, really important in terms of that, right? His game is a mini version, is a mini Clint Capella, mini Mitchell Robinson version, and you see his hops, elite rim runner, an elite lob threat, fam, at a 9'4" standing reach and a 7'7" wingspan. Man, and you see the athleticism as well. He went pick 31. Sam Vecini had him ranked number 40 talent that year. So he was a borderline late first round pick, early second, right? But he was just 18 years old, right? He's had a couple years developing. He's played with former NBA pros over there in Barca, played with Thomas Satoransky, played with our guy Rokas, um, played with some other guys as well, Billy Hernan Gomez, obviously Ricky Rubio. So, I mean, he's developing and he shows some nice uh, abilities and tools on the defensive side. I think Tibs will be keen to see him in the future, and maybe Mark Bryant can work with him, and get something out of him as well. So that is good. The clock hasn't started on his rookie contract yet, so that is something that's really good for a team like us. Trying to build, flesh our roster out, in the future with this expensive salary. Too. Hard tackle says Knicks are back. We winning the chip as well. Absolutely. Hashtag 60 wins. Buzzer beater. Started that movement. Appreciate it. And buzzer beater with the super chat. Which draft pick did we give up with Jeffries? So let me bring that up. We gave up the 2031 second rounder, and we gave up a 2026 second rounder, fam. So we have 10 more second rounders in our vault. So I'm really not worried about the second rounders we gave up in the Jeffries move to Charlotte. And so, yeah, like I said, once again, we've got 10 second round picks still to play with. We've got a pick swap in 2026 as well, I believe, 2029. We've got 2 more years where we can throw pick swaps out there as well. So that is something that we can work with too. Continue to make some nice moves. Johnny says Tibbs Nick's backup center is still unknown, but could be filled by an in-house center taking a leap. Yeah, I agree with you, man. Like Coach Nick even said, I'm not sleeping on Jericho Sims because I think, he's shown some signs. He's been inconsistent. He's been underwhelming at times, but in terms of his peak career, he's 26 now, and he knows that his future is hanging now with the Knicks in a contract year. And then obviously, I think Precious Achiuwa showed us enough. I think with a steady diet of minutes, like I said with Coach, I think his consistency can be there. I think last season was a harsh time to judge because he came from Toronto, was out of the rotation, and then we literally just threw him out there in the deep end. Right, so another big off season, and I think with the Knicks' familiarity, I think Precious Achiuwa can be a big factor for us, obviously, and I think he will to begin with. And then look, Mitch's health, we spoke on that. Ariel Hukporti, he could be the favourite to get converted from a two-way to that last 14th spot. That could be something we keep an eye out as well. We'll be live tomorrow as well, and I'll also be dropping a podcast with MSG Network's host, Billy Pedo, fam, our guy Billy P. Such a great friend of the show. He's been so generous with his time, and he's buzzing. The whole MSG team is buzzing with this. Obviously, the news of Cat being official today, and I'm going to talk to Bill Pedo basically in the morning. Get that podcast uploaded for you tomorrow, around about midday, and then we'll jump on tomorrow night again and chop it up with the latest. Buzzer with another super chat. Appreciate it, man. Does this change the power dynamic with the Jazz? In regards to, Danny Ainge and Walker Kessler, I think this will give us a bit more leverage. But I've always said it. I feel like as the season goes, Danny Ainge is going to lose more leverage, fam. I think, as we progress with who we have, we went out and got a center. We went out and got Karl Anthony Towns. And I think, working with Tibs again, I think there's that real hunger to make that work. Don't forget, Tibs did get Minnesota to the playoffs in the first season. Things went pear-shaped because of Jimmy Butler being there and the power dynamic, fam. Jimmy Butler being there, and he just wanted to wreak havoc, and it was a young Karl Anthony Towns. He wasn't really as open to being coached up, and being more, playing for a real hard-nosed coach. But like now, he's 29, he sees it, and we all have the same goal, in the Mecca, man. Also, one thing that cannot be slept on, fam, is the leader, the captain of this ball club, Jalen Brunson, right? I trust him basically more than anyone, more than Tibs, more than anyone in this organization right now, right? In terms of on the court, right? Legacies are at play, and he's a winner. He's done it everywhere. College, Dallas, here now. He's only getting better. And this is the guy you want leading on the court in terms of like if things ain't working or if there's conversations need to be had, team meetings, Brunson will do it. If Karl Anthony Towns isn't doing what is needed, Brunson's the guy. I think that's going to get the best out of him as well. He knows a lot is on his shoulders. And basically, he spoke with his actions, man, this off season. I think, we might do a show actually. We'll rank all the moves. We'll do a power ranking show, and we'll rank in tiers all the power moves of this off season, right? From the Bridges trade, the OG, this cat, everything, Tibbs extension. Let's do a show power ranking all the moves of the off season. But I think at number one would be Jalen Brunson's contract extension, and the decision that Jalen Brunson made, right? It caused shockwaves around the league, around the NBA. It's the reason why all this is possible, is because Brunson did what he did as well. We can also rank all the power moves that Brock Aller's done, man, as well. I've got a little list right now, and I'll bring some of them up. But basically, it goes back to the end of last season, fam. We signed Shake Milton with 1 week left in the season so that we would have his salary. And we had the foresight. Brock Aller had the foresight to help that move happen. And so we could move Shake Milton in the Bridges deal, right? So we don't get Bridges as currently the way we did without Shake Milton being signed, right? Next thing, we fast forward to the draft night. We gave Pacome Dadier, we basically spoke to Pacome Dadier's camp, and we said, hey, if we draft you, are you willing to take less than the rookie scale minimum, right? And we'll bring you over, right? There was conversations, would Pacome Dadier be a stash? Most people thought that would happen. But in terms of that, let me just clear this up, guys. One thing I won't tolerate is any disrespect in the chat. So anyone disrespecting someone else, you're not welcome here, right? We're a peaceful program. We're a family show. So keep it clean and respect one another. Get your thoughts out there, right? And we'll continue, fam. So with Pacome Dadier, in regards to that, right, we actually gave him less than the rookie scale minimum. And so that wouldn't, all these moves wouldn't have been able to happen if we had to draft a player that wanted the full bag, right? So tip your cap to Pacome Dadier. He's getting paid like a first rounder, but he decided to take less. The other move that the Knicks made is we drafted 4 players. Fam, we drafted 4 players in the NBA draft. People said Tibs don't play rookies. What are the Knicks? The Knicks aren't going to draft 4 players. What did we do? We drafted those 4 guys to help us fill out the roster. So that is a big help. Then the next thing is we gave Precious Achiuwa $6 million when we could have given him more. A lot of people were lobbying to give Precious Achiuwa a higher salary number so that we could use him in a bigger trade later. But if we'd given Precious Achiuwa more money, we would have been way over the cap, the hard cap, and we wouldn't have been able to make this Karl Anthony Towns trade happen as well. So that's just like 4 moves that went under the radar, that I'll put in the chat right now. And yeah, a lot of those moves will be looked over, but yeah, this doesn't happen without all those moves too. So yeah, some people are still coming to grips with the trade, and we'll see how it all plays out. But I mean, look, you're here because you're a Knicks fan, right? We all see the team in different ways, right? It's up to the players and the front office. Let them cook and let them do what they need to do, right? There'll be plenty of time for criticism if it doesn't work out, right? but don't judge something if you haven't seen it on the court yet. That's the way I'm looking at it. You know what I mean? You give players a chance, right? There was, different organizations work different ways, right? Minnesota, Washington, they don't operate like we do, right? We have a family vibe in the locker room. Like I said, Brunson will get on guys. If they're not, Tibs will get on guys as well. To be a winning organization, you need a good hierarchy. You need guys that are going to get on people, lead by example, and set the expectation too. And I think we have a lot of guys like that in the locker room. A lot of the continuation with Hart, with his work ethic. I think OG and Anunoby sets a great example as well. And of course, Bridges is here as well. Philip says, yeah, like the everyone, give the man his respect. Absolutely. Hard Tackle says, I do agree with the 2 spot. We need a guy who can actually shoot with that one. I think there'll be plenty of time to see how it all plays out. Preseason, man, kicking off real soon, October 6th against Charlotte. We won't see these main guys, I don't think, much, if at all. But the situational guys have plenty of time to figure out the kinks and all of that. Now, in terms of the TJ Warren move, like I spoke on, well, first, yeah, you probably read, but Leon Rose addressed the Carl move in the statement. We are beyond excited to welcome in Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. Karl Anthony brings a skill set that is unique to the game of ball. He possesses a blend of playmaking, shooting, rebounding, and defending. In that combination with his size, allows him to compete at a level that is rare in this league. He has demonstrated throughout his career to be a high-caliber player and a person on and off the court who will complement the type of team and culture that we continue to build in New York. Go Knicks, right? But hey, the move to bring in TJ Warren in a camp deal, right? So there's a number of ways this can go. He could take this unguaranteed deal, be another body in camp, and just be that practice guy as well. We help him, maybe repair his value, or maybe he takes a deal in Westchester and sticks around in case we free up a spot. Now, to me, this tells me, guys, that I think the Knicks are still continuing to talk trades. I don't think we're finished. I really don't. I think there is ongoing conversations, including Mitchell Robinson. If other pieces need to be included, smaller salaries, they will. But I think this might be keeping the seat warm. I really do. Nothing is imminent, as I stress, but based on what we're hearing, I don't think the Knicks are done. I think, we are keeping some of these veterans on a quick call, keeping them nearby, close by, ready to go in case some spots free up as well. Because the way I look at our cap situation, I just don't see us being able to operate like that, being so close to the hard cap, man. We need to get that number down, man. And I'm looking at Mitchell Robinson's salary as the key factor in that, right? Not his play, maybe the durability element, and maybe the contract and the cap number as well. James L. Edwards is also saying that Tibs said he isn't worried about the depth. He likes the bench a lot. Okay, so that's telling me that he's seen some things in practice that he's comfortable with, but he's also maybe seen some stuff from some of these situational players. He hasn't spoken on Tyler Kolek. He's continued to refer to Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet, though. So I think he sees those guys as someone who can fill in a lot. And that's why I've got those guys there as key rotation players right now. I think Dadier will need some time to get up to speed, but I do think maybe McCullough, who's an experienced college player, Huck Porty is a former pro as well, and we'll see if those guys might be able to be, situational, give us some production situationally. Old Head says TJ is a bucket. I was concerned with the bench scoring after losing Dante. Bogey showed a vet can score too. Howard, what's up? Says TJ Warren, just a practice guy, and Trey Murphy Trey Murphy III is a guy we're hopefully trying to get. I think we are obviously trying to kick the tires, see if the Pelicans are willing to sort of engage. I do think they want Mitch in terms of New Orleans, but what are they going to be able to give us, fam? To they're going to give us Jose Alvarado. That salary would work, but he's another backcourt player in terms of an undersized one. I think we need another player like a TJ Warren, a 3-4, 2-3-4, someone who can do more of Landry Shamet's work, but also maybe in a bigger size. I think power forward we are a bit thin, especially with the center situation, right? If guys are in foul trouble, I think it's going to be a little tricky. But again, Huck Porty, he might get some burn in this preseason. We'll see how that plays out. Hamilton's asked, can the rookie be traded for Murphy? The French rookie is under contract, so yeah, I think he's going to have to wait a little. We would have to wait to trade him, I think, because we just signed him. So anyone that just signed a contract this offseason, there's a time frame where I think it's December where we can start swinging some trades too. But yeah, I think we won the trade. I really do. I think Dante will be a huge factor for them, and Randall will obviously help with the starting production at the 4. But this has just opened up our game, man, offensively. Even we heard from Coach Nick, he thinks top 5 offense guaranteed, basically, or expecting to see a top 5 offense. And we mentioned blowing teams out. That's going to be key. You don't want to be grinding out wins every single night. This team is supreme offensively, and we're definitely going to be blowing teams out in terms of the fringe lottery and playoff teams. Those are the teams that we're going to be absolutely expected to blow out. I would stagger the starters, as I said with Coach. I would like to see maybe you take Brunson and you take Hart, you take Brunson and Hart off, and easy swap. You bring in Deuce McBride, and you bring in Campaign, and then when OG comes off, you can bring in Precious Achua, right? So you get my drift. You keep Brunson or Towns on the court at all times, and I think Bridges, being the Iron Man, he's probably the most durable out of all the starters. You keep Bridges on the court first. After the first substitution, you let Bridges run some action with the bench, because Bridges can score, but he can be that go-to guy as well with the bench, and he can help sort of carry that unit. And he's that pillar defensively as well on the perimeter too. So I would look for Tibs to absolutely love Bridges. How much does he love Hart? I think Bridges is going to average 38 minutes. What do you guys think about that? Buzzer with a super chat says, what are the front office's 2024-25 expectations, and what are the Vegas odds? The front office's expectations, I mean, they haven't really spoke on it, but obviously I think it's Eastern Conference Finals. Getting there, that is the most important goal, to get further than last season. Obviously, the Eastern Conference Finals, it's probably going to be against like a Boston. But if we don't get it done this year, I think it won't be panic, right? This is a 4-year window, legitimately, that I believe is wide open, So in terms of the odds, I'm just going to bring up the championship odds, right? But opening night, we are underdogs, obviously, against Boston. Division odds, we're second favorite, right? Regular season wins, the Vegas odds, man, have us third favorite to get 60-plus wins behind Boston and Oklahoma. That is very, very interesting. The wins, the Vegas over-under is at 53. Still, 53. I'm taking the over on that. all day, every day. What do you guys think about that? We obviously got the early NBA in-season tournament. I think we'll see how things play out with that one. But we are the third favorite to win the NBA Cup behind Boston and Oklahoma, right? That is very, very interesting. Jalen Brunson, currently, he's looking like he's the fourth favorite, or the equal third favorite for MVP. He's tied with Anthony Edwards and Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum at number 2, coming in Shai Gilgeous right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP favorite right now. So those are some odds I got for you, man. Appreciate the question and the contribution as always. Blessings, Knicks Nation. The streets are buzzing. Smash that like button, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got more guests coming, more content coming. We've got Bill Pito tomorrow in a podcast and another live stream too. Jean-Marc, great question. Any news from camp? So yeah, there's some scattered news, but obviously camp's just begun, fam. So I think we're going to learn more as camp goes along. Of course, the first preseason game is coming up real soon. So far, no Karl Anthony Towns, but now the trade is official. I think he'll be practicing tomorrow, so that is good to see. I did see Steve Popper mention that in terms of Kevin McCullough, he hasn't been able to speak to him. So there's doubts over whether he's been able to practice. But outside of him, Tibs said everyone else is healthy except Mitch. So that's great news. You know, you always start first and foremost with the health. You know, Brunson's hands healthy, and everyone else except Mitch is able to participate. There is a question mark over Kevin McCullough at the moment. Can't get some confirmation on that yet, but hopefully by tomorrow that we will. Howard says 2-year window, right? You're 78. Man, I hope we do it this year, right? Doesn't matter how old anyone is. I hope we get it done this year, right? We can catch lightning in a bottle. We'll see how it all works out, guys. I look at it like the 82 game season is it's basically a preview. The real games are the postseason. You know, that is the final boss level of this game, fam. When you get to the first, second, and third rounds, and trying to win 16 games, but we match up. We match up against anyone with the depth. Look, you can work on that as the season goes. As I said, they don't give out the trophy right now. Yes, we are a little thin in various spots, but I think Leon Rose, I mean, he's shown he'll do anything, man. He'll trade Villanova guys if he has to. So I'm not surprised if they trade Mitch, right? I'm cool either way. Like I'm a Mitch guy. I like Mitch. I think his money is very reasonable. But if he's not healthy, that's the deal breaker. You know, that's the deal breaker for me. You know, if Mitch, if he ain't healthy and he ain't giving you anything, the time is now to really pull the pin, right? It's another tough decision, but you got to make, right? We're trying to win a chip right now. We can't be paying guys that aren't available, especially when our money situation is super tight, you know? So if you can offload Mitch and you can get 2 good pieces back, or 3 even, you do it. And we'll see what happens, you know, after that. If Mitch gets healthy and he's shown by December that he can be a big factor, you rock with it. You see how that plays out. That's just the way I see it. Cat says, Johnny says, Cat is the best shooting center in the league. Do you think Tibs doesn't know how to utilize a stretch 5 superstar? I think he's going to be definitely breaking down tape. But don't discard the fact that Tibs has coached Towns, right? This is a player that he's coached before and got them to the postseason. So there's not going to be any huge adjustment, you know. It's going to be a situation where he knows, and those two are basically going to pick up where they left off in terms of that. But let me bring up the schedule, fam, because this is how close we are to seeing New York Knicks basketball guys, ladies and gentlemen, in the chat, and salute Replay Squad too. We've all got the streets buzzing as we get ready to wrap up for tonight's show. Let's look at these games, fam. Sunday, Charlotte away for the first preseason game, man. Our new look Knicks in action. I think there'll be an open practice, is what I'm hearing before then. But we'll find that out in a minute. And then, first preseason game at MSG against Washington, man, on Wednesday, the 9. Then we have a 3-day break with some more training, more practice after that. And then the big preseason game against Minnesota on the 13th, right? The following Sunday too. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns versus Julius in that one. Anthony Edwards comes to the MSG in that one. I'm excited to see Bridges in action. You know, I think there's been so much happen this offseason, you know, and you could talk about it forever, but the Bridges move is a big X factor for me. Right. My starting player X factor is Mikal Bridges because, man, he's basically on paper replacing Dante, and Dante broke the franchise shooting record last season. So that's big shoes to fill. The expectations are there. Mikal Bridges is coming in now. There's a big signing, a big trade. He's going to get an extension. And I think his best years of his career are going to be with us, right? So I'm really excited to see Mikal Bridges. Me personally, let me know in the chat, in the comment section, which player is your X Factor, fam. And then off the bench, for me, it's Deuce McBride. Deuce McBride is my other X Factor off the bench, right? He has the talent and the abilities to step up in a major way. That's, you know, going to help us where we're not going to miss Dante's production off the bench, right? You give, 15 shots that you gave to Dante over to Deuce, I'm sure you get a very similar result based on what we saw, because I think the three-point shooting is real, right? And then look, Landry Shamet coming in, that's just basically a nice little gamble, a nice flyer on a player who's a veteran who can shoot it well, But I'm not expecting the world from Landry Shamet. It's been a little hit or miss. But I think Deuce McBride's that key factor off the bench for us, fam, as well. So yeah, I'm basically middle of the day. So the time difference, Howard, is pretty friendly for me. That's why I'm able to do all this. But yeah, man, I've been a 30+ year Knicks fan. So it's ingrained in me, where all the league and the NBA action is all matinee for me, basically middle of the day too. I don't have to wake up in any crazy hour or anything like that as well. I work at night, and I can rock out and watch my New York Knicks, during the day. Basically like your Sunday matinees that you get, on the East Coast as well. But huge season ahead. Looking forward to it, guys. The coverage and the community we're building, it's amazing. We're closing in on 5,000 subscribers. We may have already hit that tonight, but I got some great announcements to make coming up real soon on some channel features that we'll be doing this season. More content for you guys and everyone. Knicks Nation, salute. Great to have you with us tonight. Many blessings. Have a great evening, and we'll talk tomorrow. Peace, everyone.